Okay, so it's been about 3.5 months since I got my Grizzly. I wanted to do a quick follow-up video about what I like and don't like about it. Um, I'll just cut straight to the chase. I love my new saw. It's a huge upgrade from my old one. I had a 50-year-old 10-inch Craftsman, so this is a huge upgrade. Having said that, I want to tell you what I do like about it the most and a few things that I'm not quite so crazy about. So, number one, I love the fence. It slides very easily. It's easy to lock down. It holds tight. It's easy to get my measurements. That's probably the number one thing that I just absolutely love about this saw. This fence is like light years better than my old one. Another thing I really like is how easily it goes up and down and change the angles. So these flywheels, they work pretty well. It goes up and down quite a bit easier than my old Craftsman did. So those are the two highlights that I have that I really like about this. Another thing I really like about this is the pull on, push off switch right here at the edge, where when I'm pushing stuff through, when I get done, I'll just have to lean on it like that and I can shut the machine off. So that's another big plus there. With my other one, I had an on and off switch that I'd have to fumble down here to find. So those are the three things I love about this the most. My old one, the miter slots were kind of dinked up, so things didn't slide through the miter slots just real easy. But I don't use the miter slots a whole lot except with my sled. So those are the things I love about it. Things that I'm not quite so crazy about. Probably the number one complaint is the riving knife, and you'll see I don't use the blade guard. I think it gets in the way more than anything else for the stuff that I do, so I don't use the blade guard. I do use the riving knife. That was one of the things I wanted about it. Was this one had a riving knife? Oh, and this is not the riving knife that came with it. The riving knife that came with it is for a full kerf blade, and it was about 1/100 of an inch too wide to use with my thin kerf blades. I have a set of fairly new Diablo thin kerf blades, so I didn't want to go and spend a bunch of money on new blades. This is probably the one I use the most, the ripping blade, and that's a thin kerf. But Grizzly doesn't sell a thin kerf riving knife for this model saw. They do sell one, or maybe even two or three, but they don't have one for this particular model. So I had a buddy of mine who has a metal fabrication business take the original one and use it as a template to cut out one out of 14 gauge steel, which is maybe just a few thousandths of an inch too thin, but it works. It still does what it's supposed to do. So, and I put that one on here, so that works really well. So 14 gauge steel, you can cut it out. In fact, I got the idea off of trying to find out what other people did. The other option I had was to buy a second one and mill it down, but this was easier. Didn't cost me anything, Buddy did it for free. So that's my number one complaint. My number two complaint, and this is probably just temporary, is the blade insert the location where they put the adjustment screws. I got one here, and then one here and one here. For some reason, they didn't put them up close to the ends, and they don't have one in the middle either. Now this is probably 14 gauge steel itself, maybe even a little thicker, maybe 12 gauge. I don't know. So it's pretty stout, but the problem is it's not exactly 100% flat. It's got just a tiny bit of a crown to it. I mean, maybe a couple thousandths of an inch. It's almost not enough to detect. But to try to get this adjusted, I can't seem to get this adjusted so that if there's no lip here, there's lip on the sides. Right now there's no lip on the sides here in the middle, but I've got a little bit of lip on the end and a little bit of lip on this end. If I adjust these any higher, then I've got a lip on the sides and no lips on the end. So, but it's not a lot of a lip, but it's enough that when I'm doing big material that's wider than this edge here, it's not an issue. But if I'm doing something a little bit thinner, so that it rides right here on top of the insert, when it gets to the end, it tends to it hits this curve and it wants to go into the riving knife, that's why it's good that the riving knife is here. It hits that and goes in, but the riving knife keeps it from doing any kickback, so it still works pretty good, but I don't like that lip there. So that's probably my number 2 complaint. Actually, that may be my number 1 complaint, and this is my number 2 complaint. The only other thing, a couple other things. So the little, it's got a stick down tape here to use for the fence, where you can kind of eyeball it. But that's really all I use it for, is to eyeball it, because I'll still use a tape measure to measure. But this tape, it's already coming up. It's only been 3 months, and this tape's already come up. It's got sawdust on it, so it won't stick anymore. And then the only other thing, complaint that I had, going back to the blade inserts, Grizzly sells blank blade inserts so you can cut your own, but they're like $35. I mean, I'm not going to pay $35 for a blade insert, because I'm probably going to end up needing at least 2 of them. We're probably going to end up needing at least 3. One for my thin kerf blade, one for my full kerf blade, well, thin kerfs, because I've got multiple of those. One for the full kerf blade that came with it, which I'll probably use from time to time, and at least one for a dado stack, if not more, for a dado stack. So at $35 a pop, those add up pretty quick. The problem with this is it's a little bit too far away, and so if I'm just ripping a thin edge off of the board, that edge tends to fall down in there, and it gets stuck in the dust chute. And I have to pull this out and reach down in there with some kind of makeshift tweezers to grab whatever it is, because I can't get my hand down in there. It's just, my hand's too big to fit down very far in there. If it's up close to the top, I can grab it, but if it goes down into the chute, I can't grab it. A couple of times I've had to open up the cabinet here and disconnect the dust chute and pull it out from that way. So I really need to get or make some zero clearance inserts. So other than that, I love the saw. Like I said, I had a 50-year-old 10-inch Craftsman. This is a 2 horsepower saw, so I don't know why they don't sell a thin kerf riving knife, because at 2 horsepower, I've bogged it down a couple of times, not nearly to the extent that I did with my old Craftsman, because that was more like a 1 to 1 1/4 horsepower. So this one has plenty of power to rip through everything that I've thrown at it, but it does still bog down a little bit. So that's why I need the thin kerf blade. But other than that, I absolutely love this saw. Like I said, it's a huge upgrade. I wish, in hindsight, I kind of wish I'd gone up to a 3 horsepower. It would have been another $500 though, and I was already about $500 over my budget. So that would have taken me $1,000 over my budget. But no real serious complaints about this machine. It's been great. I've used it quite a bit already in 3 months, and yeah, I give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.